You had mentioned, Julie, as we were preparing for this, that there was kind of a shift culturally, more, macro level of the perception of service after COVID. Um, Maybe tell us a little bit more about that and kind of your perspective.
Well, so I've grown up in hospitality, whether it's hotels, restaurants, you name it. I've been there and I've done that. And we always had the mantra, the customer's always right. We all remember when that was the mantra. I think it's interesting that after COVID, with short staffing, and so wait times are up, service levels are maybe dropping, and people are getting frustrated and they're voicing those frustrations, hence the birth of Karen, right? The birth of the Karen, what's the male version? The Kyle.
Brandon.
But yes, well, one of those, I'm not sure. I'm refusing to comment on that. But yeah, hence the birth of that. And then there was this shift, right? We saw this shift where it was okay to push back. People were getting excited to get a Karen and to put that person in their place. And man, I don't mean to badmouth Karens. I think they're getting a bad rap, but that person will say, and to tell them, no, you don't get to demand that of me. The restaurants, the hotels, the service industry is trying to protect their staff from these outbursts. But in some cases, it's their service level changed. People still had high expectations and everybody needed to adjust. So you felt that pendulum swing the other direction where customer can be wrong now. Customer's not always right. And it's okay to tell them so. And I think it's time to kind of settle somewhere in the middle. And it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's all about how we all handle these situations and empathize and listen and work to address these challenges together and de-escalate situations and create a more valuable relationship with our customers by doing so. So I know I said that all really politically correctly, but we saw it. You saw 1,000 of those memes, right? People telling them to get out of their restaurant, this and that. And I'm watching that with horror. Like, in what world? Again, it goes against all of my programming to do that. And I think it's time to shift. It's time to, settle in the middle where we're in partnership with all of our customers. Again, from the boardroom to the break room, it doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah. We're in a really hard industry for service because events are notorious for being one of the most challenging areas to serve in. There's so many variables. There's a very strict deadline and timeline. Usually deadlines are fairly arbitrary. Like, I need that project done by Friday. But no, literally the event is happening. So we need this in place. There's a lot of investment happening from the exhibitor side. I mean, so many things are going on that you have to be of service to. How do you manage being of service in those really challenging and high tense situations?
I love that you said that because we do all ultimately serve the exhibitor and the attendee, right? And it's important to remember that. I think the most important thing is to listen and empathize. People go into a situation with a preconceived notion. This guy wants to carry his freight and he can't do that. Go tell him no. And they send somebody to go tell them no, or to go tell them why they can't hang that, why they can't this. Work rules are even written, you can't do this. Okay, well, maybe let's not focus on telling them no right off the bat. First, let's hear and let's empathize. If you spent millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring that booth in and you got there and we're told no, and that moment, and you're panicked, you've flown there, you've shipped, you have all this cost and expense and expectations, that's immediately deflating and raging and causes a very high stress situation. So I think the first thing is to listen and empathize, hear what's going on. And then for me, the next biggest part is don't assume you know what you're going to say. Actually hear the person and be ready to change what you were going to say. Don't go in with it set in stone. I'm going to go tell this person no, and that'll be that. Listen, hear, and then try and come up with a solution. Ultimately, that's what we have to do to diffuse, not only diffuse the situation, because that's not what it's about, but it's get that to the finish line, help that exhibitor, customer, whoever it might be, achieve their goals. And in doing so, if you can listen, empathize, and be ready to pivot, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And frankly, it's very easy. And that pivot might not be changing what was going to ultimately happen. It might be just pivoting how you respond to the situation and expressing that empathy. Like, I hear you. That must be really frustrating. All right, let's run through the options of what we can do. Here are the options. And there's always more than one option. They might not like all the options.
That's right.
But in presenting them, at least you're letting them be part of the process. And then you're creating empathy for them to understand your situation as well.